And we're live.
Okay, it looks like everyone can hear us on the live. I just tested it and it looks like we're good, so we'll be getting started in just a few minutes. All right, so I think we're gonna get started now. So to everyone watching on our YouTube, welcome to our Relay for Life Symposium this year. So before I hand it over to Pranavshri, who's gonna be emceeing with me today, I just wanted to play a really short video about Luminarias by our survivorship chair, Nicole. So if you guys don't know, Luminaria is basically a tradition that we have that recognizes people in the fight against cancer. What we do is that we have these paper bags that we decorate and set alight during our relay event to kind of remember everyone who has lost their lives in the fight against cancer and everyone who is sort of still battling. So I am going to screen share a video.
Hi, my name is Megan. I'm a lead for MSJ Relay for Life. I joined Relay because I want to help out my community and those around me that have been affected by cancer.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm the survivorship chair, and I relay to help my community and to raise awareness for cancer.
Hi, my name's Allison, and I'm a participant management chair for the MSJ Relay for Life. I relay for my grandparents and my cousin and just my community in general.
So what is a Luminaria bag?
They're bags that you decorate and light up at night to honor every person affected by cancer, whether it's a lost loved one, a survivor, or someone currently battling the disease.
So as you can see in the examples, people decorate the bags with any sort of drawing or message that they feel celebrates the fight against cancer and remembers their loved one.
What is a Luminaria ceremony?
So during the Relay for Life event, the bags will be placed around the truck and all the participants will then take a walk through a beautifully lit path. As the participants walk around the track, they will share a moment of silence to honor those who've been affected by cancer. This is a memorable way to bring the community together.
With that being said, we hope you will join us in celebrating, remembering, and fighting for those who need us. Donate to MSJ RFL to take the first step forward.
Thank you!
All right, so that was our Luminaria video from our survivorship chair, and so now I will turn it over to Pranavshi to get us started.
Hey everyone, welcome to MSJ Relay for Life's annual symposium. My name is Pranavshi and I'm the ceremonies chair on the event leadership team.
And my name is Tanisha, and one of this year's co-event leads on the EL team.
It's so great to see everyone and we can't wait to get our panel started. We have various speakers lined up today ranging from staff members at the ACS to cancer researchers. Whether you're here to learn more about RFL and the ACS or to understand new implications of new research, we hope you can take this information from the panel and motivate you to fundraise for your team.
Yeah, so we'll begin with introductions, so our panelists will be going over their roles and any other information that they would like to share. So let's get us started, and now we have our first presenter. Our first presenter, Edward.
Okay, I have a few slides, so hopefully you can all see my screen without it creating an infinite mirror. Okay, can you all see my slides? Great. So today I'm going to be speaking from the perspective of a scientist, and some of the things that scientists here in the Bay Area, in Fremont, and around the world are thinking about with respect to treating cancer. And specifically, I'll be talking as an organic chemist. Many of you know me as the cross-country coach at Mission. But my life outside of coaching involves mentoring an exceptionally talented group of young people who work on a number of projects that are related to, I think, science at its finest. When I was in high school, I think a perception that I had, probably an incorrect perception, was that the only way to make a difference in cancer was to become a doctor one day. And indeed, that's what I wanted to become when I was in high school. But then as I entered college and then graduate school, it became clear to me that one of the ways in which people have made tremendous and remarkable advances in treating this horrible disease is as scientists in basic research and developing therapeutics that can impact people who suffer from cancer. So I'll be talking briefly about some of the things that we work on at a place called ASDRP. We're actually in Fremont. I'm one of many scientists there. I'm actually a volunteer there. And I'm also a board member there. I oversee life science research and development. We have this quote in our group, in the group of students I mentor, that if medicine is like software, then organic chemistry is the boot code. And that could not be truer for cancer research. And so some of the things that we're interested in the group is in reaction methodology, ways to make chemistry more scalable, safer, more efficient. Physical organic chemistry, can we determine fundamental characteristics of reactivity, making complicated natural products, and last but not least, chemical biology. How does all this play out in medicine? So in terms of cancer and really any sort of drug discovery research, there's really two scales of things. You can have small molecules, which are really tiny, and big molecules, biologics, things like proteins and mRNA. This is a picture from the National Cancer Institute of an antibody versus aspirin. So when we talk about chemists who are interested in molecules, we're talking about different scales of things. In fact, 1/4 of things that have been approved for FDA usage against cancer in the last 40 years are biologics, things like vaccines and antibodies. We'll talk about some of that in a few slides. Some of the leading cancer drugs, which have been influential in saving many, many lives in chemotherapy, Taxol, doxorubicin, etoposide, these are all molecules, small molecules that are isolated from nature. So we call these natural products. So I'll start with the story of a natural product that we are interested in the group that I mentor. It's a molecule called Endograph Light. It has this beautiful chemical structure. And unlike most toxic agents, we're past the days of making molecules that just kill cells for the sake of killing cells. This is a molecule that targets NF-kappa B, which is a transcription factor that regulates a lot of cell survival genes. So as such, it's been implicated in a number of cancers, and in fact, it's in clinical trials for other diseases, including colorectal cancer and whatnot. And our lab has been involved in making analogs of this compound and assaying their activity in controlling the division of cell growth, namely in leukemia cells and in colon cancer cells. And one of the things that we've been interested in is how does this molecule alter the transcriptome of the cell, specifically in cancer cells? How does it alter the way in which cells divide, and how does it alter the way in which cells survive? As many of you know, cancer is largely uncontrolled cell division. And so this is some stuff from the paper that we submitted earlier this year. Here's another little vignette of a small molecule that chemists have been working on for quite some time. So this is a cell that's undergoing mitosis. It's in metaphase. You'll probably all have seen this from general biology. And what was found at Harvard Medical School a few years ago, several years ago, 20 years ago, was that upon treatment with a compound called minastrol, this cell, which is happily dividing, all of a sudden no longer divides effectively. And this was work that was pioneered by Tim Mitchison and Stuart Schreiber, who are at Harvard, MIT, and the Broad Institute. And this compound here, minastrol, has this little structure over here. One of the ways in which chemists have been involved in advancing this sort of science is developing new ways to make chemicals like minastrol, which inhibits cell division as an anti-cancer therapeutic. So the students in my group have been involved in a number of collaborations, including one with a Canadian instrument company called Analysis, where we are developing ways to make molecules using an instrument called nuclear magnetic resonance. We have been interested in two particularly interesting anti-cancer compounds, minastrol, which I showed earlier, and this compound here called Carmifor, which is already FDA approved to treat colorectal cancer. So this is some of the work that we've been doing. A different class of molecules that chemists are interested in that I mentioned earlier in an earlier slide is biologics. These are larger biomolecules, things like DNA, RNA, and proteins that are used to treat human disease. Many of you in this day and age are very familiar with biologics because hopefully you've been vaccinated. I have 3 shots of Pfizer in my arm. That's an mRNA vaccine. And actually against SARS-CoV-2, there have been multiple monoclonal antibodies that have already been approved as well for EUA in the United States. These are much larger molecules that are several orders of magnitude bigger than small molecules, which chemists produce in the laboratory. But today I'll be talking specifically about how people have been using antibody therapeutics to target cancer. And one of the most groundbreaking discoveries that has eventually made its way into anti-cancer therapeutics is the discovery of monoclonal antibodies. And this is actually so important that it got 3 people the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 1984, when it was discovered that you could take an antigen, present it to a cell that was an antibody-producing cell, select for a cell that produced a single type of antibody, hybridize it with a myeloma cell, which would cause these to become immortalized. And this hybridoma cell line, which results, effectively becomes an antibody-producing machine. And you can isolate large quantities of monoclonal antibodies that have a great deal of specificity and high binding affinity to an original antigen. So what does this have to do with cancer chemotherapy? Many of you, all of you who have had family members who have been affected by cancer, who have gone through chemotherapy, know that there's a lot of side effects of chemotherapy because a lot of cancer drugs are quite non-specific. They hit all kinds of cells and you get a lot of collateral damage. This is the cause for hair loss and other side effects. And so a grand challenge in drug delivery is how do you specifically target those cancer cells? And actually, our human bodies have been doing this for millions of years quite effectively using antibodies. Now, several years ago, some chemists got together and said, gee, what if we took an antibody that had a high degree of specificity for a cancer cell, stuck on a payload that was very toxic to that cancer cell? We could achieve a great deal of selectivity in only killing cancer cells as opposed to killing all kinds of cells. And so this is the birth of an ADC, an antibody drug conjugate. This has really accelerated in the last few years. Just in the last 22 years, almost a dozen ADCs have been FDA approved to treat cancer. And they all have this commonality of an antibody that hits the cancer cell tethered to a very toxic anti-cancer drug. And so here's an example of one that we are currently working on. I can't talk too much about other generations of ADCs, but here's one that I can share. This is a toxic payload called MMAE, monomethyl auristatin E. It's tethered to this linker, which upon proteolytic cleavage inside of a cancer cell releases this amino-benzyl alcohol fragment, and it does a 1,4-methide elimination, which releases the toxic payload onto the cell and kills that cell. So that is one of the technologies that some people in my group have been working on. This is how we make it. But as chemists, we are in a position to make molecules that have never been made before with desired functions that have never been discovered before. And so this is what drives me as a scientist, and thinking about innovative ways to treat things like cancer at a molecular level. And this has then been scaled to collaboration with a biotech company that targets triple-negative breast cancer. And so this is just some pictures from work in our laboratory. So that's kind of what drives me as a scientist, is imagining a world where we have no cancer, and really where we have no disease, enabled by molecular innovations and molecular therapeutics. And I can't thank more of the wonderful people in my research lab who work on this sort of stuff, including I think 7 mission students now are in my group. So. And as well as these corporate sponsors. The research that we do is incredibly expensive, and so we're very thankful for the financial support of a lot of companies to support this sort of research. So I guess we'll do questions later.
Thank you so much for sharing. It was so interesting to listen about your work and your students are able to take initiative and research on. And if you have any questions for Edward, feel free to leave them in the chat right now, and he'll be able to answer those questions during our Q&A session. And up next, we have Kelly Garcia. So please take it away.
Thank you, Pranashri. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Garcia. I'm a Senior Development Manager at the American Cancer Society. I am not as cool as Edward, nowhere near, but I'm here to talk to you guys about our event side of things. And I've been at the American Cancer Society for 2.5 years now. And my journey started in Long Beach, where I was a community development manager in charge of 5 relays. I had 5 community relays, and I'm now in charge of making strides against breast cancer. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with making strides. Basically, it's a very inspirational, usually 3 to 5K non-competitive walk. And what we do is very much like Relay. We celebrate the lives of our survivors. We pay tribute to our loved ones that we've lost. And of course, we're fundraising for the mission of the American Cancer Society to fight breast cancer. As I mentioned, I joined 2.5 years ago. I've been a volunteer since I was about 10 years old for multiple organizations. But up until 2.5 years ago is when I realized that this was my calling, and I just wanted to dedicate full-time career to the nonprofit work. So I am so excited to be here, and let me know if you guys have any questions about strides or any other events.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. So I really appreciated hearing about your work with ACS. I know that what you do is really important, so really thankful for that. So after Kelly, our next panelist will be Mary Kemp.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be here with all of you tonight. My name is Mary Kemp. I am the Northern California Grassroots Manager for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. I've been with the organization for about 7 years and actually started as a staff for the American Cancer Society. So I've kind of been on both sides of the organization. And within just a few short months of starting to work for the American Cancer Society, my own mother was diagnosed with cancer. And I thought I could not be in a better position to help her than I was at that moment, because I understood so much more about what was available in terms of resources and services for cancer patients. And so I know that all of you are here tonight because cancer has impacted you, someone in your life, a sibling, a teacher, a parent, a grandparent. So kind of bring them to mind, bring that person to mind that is the reason that you're engaging today. And I want you to think about, as you reflect on their experience going through cancer, their journey, What might have made their life better? What might have improved their quality of life during this difficult time? What are the challenges that they faced that were really unique to them as an individual that maybe no one else experienced? And then I want you to imagine having that insight and then keeping it to yourself and never sharing it with anyone that might be able to help them. This is what we do when we don't advocate for those that we love. And so this is the reason advocacy is so important. We have very specific knowledge that we need to share with others. And we need to share that with people that pass policies that are going to impact, catching cancer early, preventing cancer entirely, improving the quality of life for those that are facing cancer. And so I want you to just sort of think about that when you think of those moments where it might be scary to share your story publicly. You can amplify the voice of cancer patients and those you love, and you can create real meaningful change. And so that's what I do at ACS CAN, and all of you are a part of the puzzle. So I hope that you will all contribute to that throughout your years. Thank you so much. I'll pass it back to you.
That was wonderful. I really enjoyed listening to your journey with the ACS, and it's really admirable how you supported cancer patients, survivors, and caregivers for so many years. Up next, we have Haley.
Hi, thank you guys for having me. Good. I'm Haley Huntington. I used to be a volunteer just like you guys. I didn't start in high school. Unfortunately, my school did not have a Relay for Life for ACS on campus. But when I went to University of Iowa, we had a student organization fair, and everyone had poster boards and pictures of everywhere. And I saw the word cancer, and I knew I had to be there, and I had to be in that room. So when I was in college, it was called Colleges Against Cancer. But a little bit about my story. My mom passed away with breast cancer when I was 11 years old. And her mom has survived 2 types of cancer, and just recently her dad actually passed away from colorectal cancer. So cancer is a big part of my family, part of my history. I know it's something that I need to work towards and prevent in my own life, and also help protect my family and share information too, like Mary was talking about, advocating for yourself and the people around you. So I was a part of Relay for Life at the University of Iowa, my 4 years of undergrad. I studied public health and health informatics. So I knew that I had computer skills and that technology is a huge part of our life. And I also know that public health is a growing field, as you can see from the pandemic and all the public health jobs that are around. But throughout my journey, I didn't know exactly where I wanted to be, and ACS and volunteering for ACS was a huge passion point for me. And it actually turned out after I graduated college that there's some positions in the youth market that I could be a part of. So as of January, I'm now a senior development manager of youth programs. So I'm working as a staff partner like Kelly is. I'm working starting ACS on campus and Relay for Lives that are growing to be as awesome as you guys here at Mission San Jose. So I work from all the way here in Iowa to the Northeast, and I've got some colleagues that are in charge of the West Coast and the Southeast in their respective markets. I could talk hours and hours about how excited I am for the youth market, but it was just last year when Dr. K got the opportunity, and she said, you know what, our youth are huge, and why are we not tapped in and engaging in a better way? We could have a Relay for Life, we could have a Making Strides Against Breast Cancer in every community, and we could utilize our volunteers to spread that mission and spread that advocacy in their local or in their federal governments too. So Dr. K was, I'm a big fan of Dr. K, just because she kind of gave me a job, and she knows that this generation is super just in touch with diversity and health equity and inclusion. I think this generation is making an absolute difference in the fight against cancer. We are so much more aware of how just like your zip code impacts your health. I know Edward could talk hours about that, and so could Cameron Graver doing research. But even cancer cancer doesn't really care if you are a person in Iowa, a person in Colorado, or all the way in UK. You can get cancer with you can get cancer in a blink of an eye, and it really, really stinks. But I hope, of course, one day to have a world without cancer, like Edward mentioned. I know everyone in this room does too, if that's between raising money, or you want to just share mission and prevention in your community, or you want to go advocate on Capitol Hill to increase research fundraising or funding. So I'll get off my little soapbox, but I'm so glad to be here with you guys. I've met some of other Mission San Jose volunteers throughout my journey. Oh, I forgot to mention, I used to be the co-lead of the National Campus and Youth Engagement Team last year. I'm still involved as the ACS on campus lead, but still working as a staff person. So I'm kind of a hybrid in that way. So you'll definitely see me on Campus Relay, Instagram, on all over the place. I'll be around. But thank you guys for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Haley. So I know personally, I just really enjoyed kind of hearing about your journey and how like you learned about ACS in college and took that beyond, and you're really making a huge impact in what you're doing. And I think just having like students see someone young and like passionate, that's really important. So thank you for sharing your story. And last but certainly not least, we have Cameron Graber, who also works alongside Haley.
Yeah, so to start out, I just want to echo everything that Haley said. You guys are the reason why we're here tonight, and I'm super excited to be a panelist on this, but ACS is truly looking at you guys for the future. The youth is the future. You guys are full of innovation, so full of amazing ideas, and it's evident that ACS is wanting the young voices, and the fact that they're devoting employee time and they're hiring and colleges and all these other initiatives, especially since the past year, like Haley said, it's a new job. ACS hasn't been hiring, but they're hiring now for youth market. And that's especially exciting that since we're coming out of COVID as well. But a little bit about me, I have been volunteering with the American Cancer Society for 20 years now. That might not seem possible, but I started at a young age of 3 or 4. My mom brought me to my first Relay for Life. And I really loved it. I loved hanging out with her. I loved the atmosphere that I got to see. I loved being able to step all right. And then as I got older, when I got to middle school, I started taking over her team as team captain. When I got to high school, I joined our ELT. It was still community events. So it was a little different than high school, but still pretty similar. And then once I got through high school, I knew I wanted to stay involved after, and I knew I wanted to get involved on my campus at the University of Iowa, which Haley and I actually volunteered with each other on. So I contacted them. One thing, don't be afraid to contact your schools if you're going to college or you're going to trade school or anything like that. See if they have a Relay for Life or an ACS on campus. You never know. If they don't, you can always start one. But we'll get to that later. But eventually when I was going through college, I knew I wanted to do more. So I joined the regional campus leadership teams. And then the year after that, I joined at that point it was the National Campus Leadership Team, but now it's called the National Campus and Youth Engagement Team, mouthful. But I was actually able to co-lead the team during the pandemic. We had a lot of ups and downs, but through it, we grew, and I'm super excited to see where Haley and Kim Coates, the most recent co-leads, took it. And I'm actually the co-lead for the National Community Fundraising Leadership Team, which oversees all of the community events when it comes to ACS event products. And it's about $106 million in revenue. So it's another volunteer opportunity that I am very privileged to have. And we're actually having our Orlando kind of transition meeting at the end of the month. So did do research when you were talking about research earlier. I did research at the University of Iowa for about a year and a half, 2 years closer throughout college, and also was my first full-time job outside of it after I graduated with a bio degree. But like I said, super excited to be here, and I'm all for all the questions that you're going to throw at us.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I really enjoyed hearing about your journey and how both you and Haley emphasize youth voices, which is so important for lifting up and supporting the cancer community. So thank you to all our panelists for introducing themselves and the work they're involved in. So that concludes our first half of our symposium. And during our second half, we'll be having a discussion and opportunity for a Q&A session.
So first, we're going to be going through some questions that people submitted prior to the live stream. And then while we're doing this, if any of you guys who are watching on the YouTube have any questions for our participants or our panelists, be sure to put them in the YouTube chat and we'll get to them right after. And you guys can direct your questions to like a general audience or also specifically to any member of our panelists. So yeah, we'll get started and I'll hand it over to Pranamshi for our first question.
Yeah, so I know the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively impacted the ACS by forcing it to cut or suspend many of its services. So my question is, how has it specifically impacted the work you're involved in, and what steps did you take to mitigate those effects?
And this question is mostly directed towards our ACS staff members on call.
I can jump in and go first and then pass it over to someone else. One of the things that didn't slow or stop during the pandemic was actually healthcare legislation and cancer advocacy. In fact, because of the pandemic, there was even more work that was required on behalf of cancer patients, caregivers, and their families. Health disparities became glaringly apparent, and access to healthcare was even more critical and perhaps complicated by the pandemic. The pandemic's impact to our organization's finances meant a reduction of staff available to advocate. So the way that we navigated these impacts and came out stronger on the other side was that since we had less staff to work with, we reached out to our amazing group of volunteer legislative ambassadors. Nearly every county in the state of California has a small group of ambassadors that are committed to being the voice of cancer patients in their local communities, at city council or county meetings, at assembly or Senate committee meetings, or even at the nation's capital. And so the pandemic meant that a lot of these meetings shifted to virtual, just like this one. But this actually made it a lot easier for people to participate, and more students signed up to become legislative ambassadors during this time than any other in the history of our organization. In short, it was only because of more volunteers that we were able to provide the best cancer support to our patients. And then to address health disparities and access to care, ACS CAN formed a national Black caucus and a national LGBTQ+ caucus. Locally, we hosted events such as Speak Up, Lift Up, supporting our most vulnerable communities, which addressed racism in medicine, health equity impact of COVID-19 and how we're fighting back. We hosted a youth health equity panel that featured Mission San Jose's very own Curisano, and cancer research through a health equity lens that identified the root causes of many cancer disparities. So these events were a way to educate community members and lawmakers. We worked to pass key federal legislation like the Henrietta Lacks Enhancing Cancer Research Act, which addresses diverse participation in cancer clinical trials and reduces barriers to enrollment for communities of color. So you can see there was a whole lot happening even during a pandemic. So that's what we've been up to and how we navigated. And I'll pass it over to someone else who'd like to speak.
Sure, I can go next, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing that. As we mentioned before, we had to suspend some of our programs and services or pause them during 2020 and part of 2021. But COVID-19 also disrupted a lot of routine screenings and healthcare. And we believe that some of these disruptions are probably going to affect cancer survival among some groups that already experience either social or economic challenges in receiving screening and care. So we are making sure that we're reminding people of the importance of detecting cancer early when it's easiest to treat. When it comes to event specific, of course, in 2020, we were unable to have any events in person. We had to stop them and pivot into virtual events. I know you guys did that as well. We had to improvise and just go with it. And we also had some drive-throughs, some parades. Fundraising was also affected, but we did see a lot of kind of like really cool virtual ideas come up. We had Zoom bingos, we had virtual yoga classes. Instead of our typical restaurant fundraisers, we had takeout Tuesdays, stuff like that. So, and then last year we had to reimagine our events to include social distancing. We had to add masks, we had to add sanitizing. We had to make sure we kept our participants and our survivors safe, but at the same time, still try to give them the experience they missed from almost 2 years before. So it was definitely an interesting experience trying to do that, trying to reimagine them, but it ended up being amazing for everybody at the end.
Yeah, thank you guys. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Sorry, Denitra. I'll pitch in real quick for the volunteer side. You know, as all of you guys may have had to deal with, ACS, like they were saying, had kind of dealt a big blow because of COVID, especially when it came to their finances. And they really had to ask tough questions of how are we going to survive this? How are we going to make sure that we cut expenses while also providing the necessary support for the millions of cancer patients and survivors? And coming out of COVID 2020, ACS was barely a $500 million organization, where 2 years ago it was, or 2 years before that, it was 700 million. But something super exciting because of all of your passion, your guys' passion, all the passion of our countless volunteers across the country, is that in 2022, we're expected to get close or surpass that $700 million mark again. We're able to provide those resources. And because of ACS's tough questions, we're able to provide more resources and more capabilities than we did before the pandemic, because we've really focused on how can we better support our volunteers when it comes to staffing? How can volunteers be more independent and more really engaging with the events and with the communities and stuff like that, and really relying, ACS always says volunteer-led, staff-supported. That is more true than ever, and very true in the campus realm, high school realm, but we're super excited to see where this year comes out of.
Yeah, thank you to all three of you for sharing. I think just kind of speaking on behalf of missions team, I know that COVID really impacted our fundraising and the ways that we were able to affect students. And that's why I'm really excited that this year our event is back in person. And I do have the soft announcement that we have the okay to go forward with a 24-hour event for the first time in 2 years. And to speak to that, we've also had our best year for registration. I think our Blitz Week this year had more than 300 participants sign up over the course of a week. So we're really excited for all the stuff that you guys are going to accomplish as a part of MSJ Relay for Life. And so it's time for us to kind of kick up some fundraising numbers and do really great. So I'm super excited for that. And I loved hearing from all of you guys about what the ACS is being able to do now and how it's persevered even throughout the pandemic. And I have another question here from an audience member. This one is for Mary, so it's actually two questions combined. So the first one is, because you work a lot with ACS CAN and cancer advocacy, I was wondering what are the current initiatives or projects that the ACS CAN is currently working on? And I recently got an email saying that the government passed a budget with increased funding for cancer research, and what is this going to do and how does it compare to how the drop of funding from COVID impacted donations?
Yeah, great question. I'm so glad that you took note of that. So yes, timely. Just last night, after like nearly 6 months, Congress finally passed the budget. And this is really important because the National Cancer Institute actually had to put their projects on hold at the start of the year because they didn't know how much money they had to work with. And so we know for people facing cancer, like any delay could be the difference between life and death. Like research cannot wait. We cannot put it on pause. And so that budget was just passed. It means that cancer research projects that had been put on hold can start up again. And so I would just encourage you, if you don't follow ACS CAN on Instagram, to do that. The most recent post on there is about this research funding. And so I invite you to like it, share it, kind of keep tabs of what's happening with research. And then some of the other initiatives that we're working on right now, specific to the state of California, We're working on a biomarker testing bill. And what this will do is improve both treatment outcomes and quality of life for cancer patients. Currently, insurance is not required to cover cancer biomarker testing. What that does is it limits access to only those who are wealthy. This has been around for 20 years. So for 20 years, wealthy people have been able to access this sort of advanced type of treatment. We want everyone to be able to access it. So we have a state bill that we're working on that will go to the Senate Health Committee in April. And so hopefully by August, we will have a different standard in the state of California. And then locally, like there are so many opportunities to engage with city councils, county supervisors, and this could be like writing letters to the editor, meeting with lawmakers to share your personal experience and passion, signing petitions, providing public comment, educating your circle of influence. There's so many things you could do. Perfect example is this Monday, I'm going to travel to Sacramento with a group of 7 ACS CAN student ambassadors, and we're going to talk to lawmakers about the impact tobacco waste has on the environment. And so if you want to be looped into opportunities, you can reach me at mary.kemp@cancer.org, because otherwise I could just go on and on.
Thank you so much for your response. It was like so interesting to hear about the current bills and legislation that like ACS CAN is like working on, and like how it just like got passed last night. It was so cool to hear that and so happy. And I really like how you include how like we could, as the audience, could like help by signing petitions and writing letters. So thank you so much for your response. And this next question is for Edward. Would it be possible if you can guide us through the steps of your research? For example, like how are the ideas proposed, and if you're able to share, what are some of the biggest findings you've come across through your research?
I think one of the biggest findings that I and others come across is that you can actually make a difference as a human. And many of you here at Mission are very intelligent people who are very much so into the sciences. And I would encourage some of you to think about pursuing careers in the sciences. A lot of these projects are proposed, well, some of them are proposed in conjunction with industry. So we collaborate closely with things like biotech companies and instrument companies to bring our science from the fume hood into actual patient samples in some cases. One of the biggest discoveries, I guess, is namely that you as a human can be a scientist as a career. That's something that didn't occur to me when I was in high school, when I was in your shoes many years ago.
So kind of going off of that, I have a question from a student who says, like, I am someone who is interested in pursuing something STEM related. I'm not exactly sure what. And it looks like cancer research is something that seems to be interesting to me, and I want to kind of get involved with that, or working in like oncology research or something related to that in my career and in college. What are some steps that you would recommend that I take, or like ways I can get involved? Are there like specific courses I should take, or like research that I should participate in, or like how can I move forward with that?
I think cancer research is very broad. It's almost like if you propose a question to 5 different scientists from 5 different backgrounds, they'll propose 5 different answers. And one of the very cool parts about my job is I get to interact with other chemists, but also with people who are, MD, PhDs who are associated with clinics. So I would say start with thinking about what you're interested in. Right? If you say, I want to cure cancer, and you ask the chemist how to do that, and you ask a biologist how to do that, you ask a clinician how to do that, or if you ask a surgeon how to do that, or a public health person, they'll give you 5 different answers. And it's been said that somebody's vocation is where your greatest passion meets the world's greatest needs. So I would recommend starting with finding out more about what you enjoy thinking about, and from what level you enjoy thinking about cancer, and how to solve this problem.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, there's so many different perspectives to cancer, and like so many different approaches as well. So our next question is for Kelly. You have been with the ACS for a while now, and you've worked on different projects and initiatives, including RFL and Making Strides of the Bay Area. So what were your experiences working and planning those 2 events, and what advice do you have for new participants getting started with their journey in the ACS?
Yeah, of course. So I think my number one advice would be to remember why we're doing what we're doing and just have fun. You know, it can definitely be challenging at times, but just remember you're doing such an amazing thing. You're helping so many people, so many that you will never even know about. And we couldn't do anything that we do without you. So just be proud of that. It's been an amazing experience working with both Relay, working with Strides, being able to talk to all my volunteers, and just seeing the difference that we're making in so many people's lives is just unbelievably fulfilling. So I think my number one advice is that if you're having a hard day, I know sometimes I'll have days when it's a lot, it's very hard, but the one thing I do is remember, okay, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So just have fun with it and be super proud of it.
Thank you. So those are all of the questions that we had pre-submitted before today's meeting, and now I'm going to move on into the audience submitted questions that you guys have all been putting in the chat. Just as a reminder, if you guys continue to have questions throughout today before 6 o'clock, make sure that you're posting them in the chat, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. So the first question is for Haley. You mentioned that you're transitioning over into a new role right now at the ACS and that you're a hybrid. So what are some of the projects that you're working on in your new role, and what exactly is that new role?
Yeah, good question. So there is a lot we have in the works for all of you, our youth. When I talk about youth, that can be from elementary school even to post-college, that like 24, 25 range. And we even have programs after that once you graduate college and you're into your, get into young professionals life is what we like to call it. But, where do I begin? We are looking into some avenues on how can we give back to the community. So we're looking at some scholarship opportunities for people impacted with, or kids impacted with cancer and their families, looking into some different programs. If maybe Relay doesn't work at your school, how can you still fundraise for ACS? How can you still advocate and share? We call that our day of service. And a really fun one that is happening in the summer is called ACS Kids. If you've heard of Relay Recess, it was a older program that we engaged with elementary and middle school students and teachers, but now we've realized that middle school, they don't want to be treated, sometimes they thought they were kind of babied by doing this Relay Recess thing. So but middle schoolers can still do Relay, they can still do ACS on campus, and so we are changing the way that and the scope that we look at that. But this summer we are launching our ACS Kids program, and that is specifically for elementary school students. The really fun part is we are developing an app. So these kids and the teachers can have an app that they can have a lesson plan that they do once a month or however they want to. And they can talk about cancer at that level. I know when cancer came into my life, I was 8 years old is when I first heard the word cancer. I had no idea what that meant. So how do you talk to a 6-year-old? How do you talk to an 8-year-old about cancer, especially if their family is impacted by it? It's a sensitive topic, but it's something that eventually will come into their life and they will hear about. So we want to be sensitive and kind when we talk to kids. But yeah, I'm just really excited about ACS Kids. And we already have some elementary schools that are interested in it. And so that's really fun, getting into the elementary school market and continuing on that way. I will touch on, I'm in my role, I'm working with the NCYET, the National Campus Youth Engagement Team, more closely. So that's super fun. This weekend, we had our transition meeting of the new team members, and Tanisha is one of them. So we're so happy to have her on. But this team is very diverse and very innovative. We were just blown away with the strategy that we are coming up with this year. So very excited to work with them, hear exactly from people like Tanisha that are in high school Relay. What do you guys want to do, and how can we build that into a national strategy? So if you want to contact any of the new NCYT members, we have updated our leadership page on acsoncampus.cancer.org. You can find all their email or contact information and ask them about it. But yeah, I'll throw out my email is haley.huntington@cancer.org. So I can talk you off about things. And I'll throw out too, we are developing a kind of a more seamless program on once you graduate high school, where do you go with your ACS volunteership? There are hundreds and thousands of ACS on campus chapters, but you just had to find the right place. So like Cameron said, there isn't a relay or an ACS on campus at the college that you may be going to, or the trade school that you're going to, wherever you may land up after high school, you could possibly make one. So if you are graduating, graduating senior this semester, I would totally reach out to your staff person or myself and ask, I'm looking into this school, do they have an ACS involvement? And we will get you linked up to the right place so that you can continue your volunteer career.
Yeah, so this question is actually very related, but so this question is like, if I'm a senior going to college next year and I want to get involved with Relay because I was part of it at Mission, how exactly would I go about that, or what advice would you have for someone who's kind of transitioning into a new Relay space and I don't really know what this new campus does, or even if they don't have a Relay at my new school?
So I can speak to that. I was in the same boat, or I was on that exact boat when I was leaving high school. I was very comfortable with my community and I knew them very well, but I still wanted to stay involved. Cancer had been a passion of mine and it had become even more of a passion of mine over the years. And I was like, how do I stay involved? So the first thing I did was I looked at the Relay for Life website. I looked at the University of Iowa, searched for it on the Relay near me or whatever that search bar is. I saw that they had an event. So I saw the staff partner. I contacted that staff partner directly, and then she got me into contact with their two co-leads. So that's how I went about it. But like Haley said, if you're kind of still uncomfortable about contacting them directly, ask your staff partner at Mission San Jose. Be like, hey, I'm looking to go to Vandergrift, or not Vandergrift, Vandergrift's a high school. I'm looking to go to Vanderbilt. Do they have a relay? They can look through multiple sources. And then if they do have a relay, they can help you get connected with staff. Maybe there's a volunteer and some of the ACS resources that they have access to that they can get you in contact with. But I would definitely say, look to see if there is, try to reach out to them. If there's not, maybe ask your staff partner to see if they can do a little bit more digging. And if there's not an event, if there's not a community event either, then maybe think about building your own relay or building your own strides or building your own Bark for Life, whatever you want to do. ACS is very inclusive on most ideas. They really want to make sure that volunteers are able to do what they want and to be able to support the brainstorm, think of how you can stay involved in that community even without the current ACS presence.
Yeah, so I just typed in the chat the name of our staff partner. Her name is Madison, and her email is madison.butts@cancer.org. So if you guys are in that situation, you're looking for some guidance on like, how can I stay involved with Relay, and you're trying to navigate the website, it's not working, you can email Madison and she will be happy to help you guys. And I'll hand it over to Pranamshi for the next question.
So Mary, I thought you have some links in the chat related to ACS CAN. I know you kind of addressed this question a bit earlier, but what advice would you give, would you have for high school relayers who want to get more involved with ACS CAN and cancer advocacy really early on?
Yeah, there's so many ways to get involved. And so kind of the first advice that I would give you is that no matter where you are in life in terms of your time commitment, we all have times in our life where we have a lot of time to give, and there are times where we just don't have any time because school is overwhelming. That should never preclude you from actually remaining active as an advocate, because some of our actions take literally 30 seconds to do. So if you have 30 seconds that you could give in any given month, you can continue to be an advocate year round. And so three sort of specific ideas that come to mind are, one is lifting up the voice of cancer patients. So we have a survey called Survivor Views, and this is a space that allows patients to share their experience so that we build policy based on that. Our Survivor Views help us better understand what patients need. And in our last survey, we found out that 74% of cancer patients had to miss work for their treatment. 39% had to miss 13 or more weeks of work. 32% had no income during this time. 7% of them lost their jobs. And then 59% said that their finances were unmanageable during this time. And so what that let us know is that at the national level, we need to have a national paid leave policy so that cancer patients can have time off from work to go to their treatment and not lose their jobs and not be able to afford just living. So share that link with people you know, invite them to share their experience. Another thing is to, like, if you just have a little bit of time, lift up your voice by taking action. If you go to fightcancer.org, there's a take action tab. If you click on it, there's a bunch of national actions that you can take. They take just a matter of minutes to complete. Put on your calendar like 5 minutes once a month where you're going to like log into that tab and see what actions you can do, or go on to any of the social media channels and see what's happening on there where you can take action. And then if you've got a little bit more time to give, my third thing would be really to encourage you to sign up as a legislative ambassador. Legislative ambassadors work with staff and volunteer leaders throughout the state, every state in the nation, Puerto Rico and Guam. You can establish these personal ongoing relationships with elected officials to advance policy change. We have here in the state of California 4 statewide meetings to discuss opportunities throughout the year. Often legislative ambassadors are invited to our Cancer Action Day in Sacramento or to our National Leadership Summit and Lobby Day in Washington, D.C. So those are like 3 ways to get involved.
Yeah, thank you. And then for anyone watching, the links to all of those stuff are in the chat. And when we send out like an email recap, we'll have all of that stuff too. The next question is for Haley and Cameron. What are the kinds of things that happen on like a regional campus event leadership team versus like a school leadership team versus a national team, and then what you guys are doing now?
I can take that first, Haley, and you can pitch in with anything that I forget. But when it comes to the regional and national teams, it's kind of it's a very different mindset that we have to approach, because we're not thinking of just one event. We're not trying to support these 300, 400, 500 volunteers for one event. We're trying to think of how can we support 300, 400, 500 events. And within each of those events, there are countless volunteers. So when it comes to these teams, we are trying to create strategies on these regional and national levels, trying to figure out what our top priorities are for the year. What have campuses been struggling with? What have they been really succeeding with? What can we really pull from our previous experiences and really build up and support these campuses, and also trying to make collaboration between your schools. The University or Iowa has 3 large universities. So how can we connect all 3 of these universities and help them connect and help them learn from each other? And that kind of creates less of a job responsibility for us as a national and regional team, because they're able to help everyone out. But we also are supporting by providing resources, providing guidance. If people do have questions, they can come directly to us. The 3 years that I've been on the team, we've had many volunteers come to us, like I said, wanting to start events, having questions on how to build their event, how to regrow their event. They were very successful 4 years ago, but because of some circumstance or COVID now, like how can they regrow? How can they make a presence back on their campus? So that's the things that we're really focusing on. And same with the community team. The community team is the exact same way. We're trying to find these priorities, trying to make sure that our events and the volunteers are supported in any way that we can.
I think Cameron answered that pretty well, but I'll just add, like he was saying, the regional campus leadership teams are supporting that specific region. There's 6 ACS regions. So in the West, I believe it goes California, Oregon, Washington, maybe Idaho. There's just a handful of states, but I'm in the North region, and it's all of the Midwest, including Montana, the Dakotas, just a bigger region. And so we know the people that live in those different states are different demographics, and so we can't treat every campus the same. What we like to say in the NCYT is one idea may work awesome at Mission San Jose, but it might need to be tweaked to work at Virginia Tech, just because of the people who are there, the community, how they want to be involved in. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you guys so much for sharing. This might be our last question as our time is running out, but I just want to conclude, like, what are the most exciting recent developments or breakthroughs in cancer research that you think will change the experience of future cancer patients?
And I believe this question would be directed toward Edward, yes. Or like anything that you think not just happening on your research or what your group is working on, but like at a worldwide scale, what exciting recent developments are going on and what could be going on that would really change the lives of cancer patients.
I think what's going on in the scientific community right now in targeting cancer is people are moving beyond being one-trick ponies. In other words, people are more willing to combine ideas from a variety of backgrounds and disciplines. Some of you heard earlier today about taking an antibody that is produced by an immune cell that targets the cancer antigen, tethering a small molecule to it, and using that to kill cancer cells. That's an example of many efforts to combine expertise from different backgrounds to target this problem. And I think the best solutions of tomorrow are those which, first of all of you will be part of as the future generation of people who will be in the world contributing to new ideas, but also people who are willing to go out of their way to combine ideas and exciting new frontiers from biology, chemistry, public health, and other sorts of disciplines to solve problems. We're not just chemists and biologists, we're problem solvers tomorrow.
I'll kind of go off what Edward said. Like Haley mentioned, I was in a research lab and one of our focuses was cancer. It's kind of in its exponential growth stage of research, and it, like Edward said, it can't continue without new innovative ideas, new people coming in, and redox biology is a big focus, and it's really starting to be focused on within cancer and stuff like that. Same with, like Edward said, the combination of like minidione, vitamin K, combined with chemotherapy. Like there's just so many different things and so many different approaches that it's honestly endless. And I'm sure Edward can attest, everyone's super excited to see where it goes to.
All right, so that pretty much concludes our symposium in the interest of time. I know there were a couple of questions that didn't get answered, so if your question didn't get answered, I will do my best to email the people who are here today, ask them for like a quick response and, just get that out to you guys. But I wanted to take this opportunity to thank every single person who is on this call and every single person who is watching our live. I think it's really great that all of you guys took time out of your Friday evenings. You guys could be like drinking pina coladas and watching football, but you guys are here with us, and that's really, really exciting. I do also want to take a moment while I'm on the soapbox to encourage everyone who is watching to get involved with MSJ's Relay for Life. We have our event coming up on the 21st of May, and we're really excited for that to be an in-person event. So if you guys wanted to start forming teams and getting fundraisers in and donating and all that kind of stuff, that would be absolutely fantastic. But in the meantime, I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out today, and that pretty much concludes our symposium. We hope you guys all were able to learn something or take away something meaningful from here, and we're excited to see you guys all in May. Thank you guys. At the end, I think you can stop the live. I did not mean to do that. So that pretty much concludes it. I don't know why the live isn't stopping. I think Adyant is working on trying to get that done, but thank you, all of you guys, for coming in. You guys can feel free to drop off the call since we're pretty much done here, but just thank you once again. Yeah, bye guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.